The statement delivered by Fred Vasseur was nothing short of staggering, and it left Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc completely blindsided. And frankly, it's easy to understand why. At a moment when Ferrari was in desperate need of clarity, conviction, and above all, leadership heading into Imola, their team principal projected the opposite: ambiguity, caution, and a lack of urgency. Coming off the back of a deeply frustrating Miami Grand Prix, a weekend where both drivers wrestled with a misbehaving SF25 and left with more confusion than solutions, the entire paddock was bracing for Ferrari to punch back. The hope, both inside the team and among fans, was that the Scuderia would unveil something big. A breakthrough. A definitive step forward. At the very least, a bold message from the top signaling that Ferrari was still a serious contender in the 2025 championship fight. But instead, Vasseur took to the microphones and effectively said, "Don't get your hopes up." The much-anticipated upgrade package for Imola, which had been whispered about as a potential game-changer, has now been downgraded to a mere incremental tweak. There's no major aerodynamic overhaul. No radically new side pods. No revised floor concept. Just a small nudge forward when what the team so desperately needed was a leap. And for Hamilton and Leclerc, two world-class drivers already struggling to extract performance from a car with an infuriatingly narrow operating window, that announcement hit like a sledgehammer. This wasn't just a technical delay. This was a psychological blow. A body shot to morale. Because when the leader of a team publicly adopts a tone of hesitation instead of confidence, what kind of message does that send down the chain of command? What belief does it foster inside the garage? How does it affect the mindset of a driver like Hamilton, a seven-time champion who came to Ferrari chasing a fairy tale ending? Or Leclerc, who spent years carrying the hopes of Maranello on his shoulders, only to find himself once again in a car that punishes rather than performs? Before we dive deeper into the consequences of Vasseur's remarks, the reactions from both drivers behind closed doors, and what this all means for Ferrari's trajectory in 2025, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with us until the very end. Because what's unraveling inside Ferrari right now is not just a slow start to the European leg of the season. It could be the beginning of a full-blown crisis of belief, one that fractures the trust between engineers, drivers, and the leadership structure itself. And that fracture may prove to be the most defining moment of the Scuderia's entire campaign. Let's rewind to Miami, where the problems weren't just visible, they were amplified under the spotlight. On the surface, Hamilton's P3 finish in the sprint might have offered a glimmer of encouragement. But that hope evaporated by Sunday. In the main race, Leclerc finished a dispiriting 7th. Hamilton crossed the line in 8th. Two Ferraris crawling to the checkered flag, unable to put any pressure on McLaren, Red Bull, or even Mercedes. On paper, those results might appear solid top 10 finishes. In reality, they were the symptoms of something more malignant growing at the heart of Maranello. And both drivers knew it. Hamilton, missing out on Q3 for the second time this season, didn't hold back. His team radio during the race was already laced with sarcasm and barely veiled irritation. But off the air, speaking to the press, he laid the truth bare. "We've lost performance since China," he said. "It's in the car. We just can't access it." That one sentence encapsulated the root of Ferrari's agony. The SF25, on paper, has the ingredients to be competitive. But unlocking its potential has become a maddening puzzle. The car is plagued by setup limitations, erratic handling characteristics, and a performance window so unforgiving it borders on unusable. Leclerc, too, wasn't shy in voicing his displeasure. With his trademark precision, he echoed Hamilton's frustration, highlighting the growing disconnect between the car's theoretical capabilities and its real-world execution. In a team that should be marching in unison toward a common goal, the vibe now feels fractured, uncertain, tense. And Vasseur's hesitant tone only widens that fracture. Because in Formula One, especially at Ferrari, momentum is everything. Confidence isn't just a byproduct of results, it's a fuel source. It's what powers belief in the factory, in the design department, in the pit wall. And when that confidence is publicly undercut by the very person tasked with leading the charge, the whole structure wobbles. It's hard not to feel that Ferrari is approaching a dangerous inflection point. One where the psychological strain may start to affect not just performance, but relationships. Between drivers and engineers. Between team bosses and strategists. Between Ferrari and its fans. So now, all eyes turn to Imola. Not because anyone expects Ferrari to miraculously win there, but because this is a test, not just of speed, but of spirit, of whether the team can still believe in itself, of whether Vasseur can regain control of the narrative, of whether Hamilton and Leclerc can keep their faith in a car and a project that is increasingly hard to read. One thing's for sure. If things don't improve soon, the 2025 season won't just be remembered for what Ferrari failed to build. It'll be remembered for what they allowed to fall apart. After qualifying a disappointing P8, trailing behind both Williams drivers, Lewis Hamilton didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't look for excuses or deflect blame. He simply admitted what everyone in the paddock had already begun to suspect: this is as much as the car can give right now. He delivered a clean lap, extracted everything he could from the SF25, and still ended up 3 rows behind the frontrunners. His tone remained composed, but the underlying message was unmistakable. The issue wasn't him. It wasn't the engineers. It was the machine they were desperately trying to tame. That mounting frustration only amplified the importance of Imola, Ferrari's first home race of the season. It was supposed to be the moment where things turned around, the perfect stage for a strong statement of intent. And leading into the race, the Italian press was bubbling with cautious optimism. Whispers of major aerodynamic upgrades circulated through the media. Redesigned side pods, a reworked floor, perhaps even modifications to the suspension. These weren't just tweaks, they were framed as salvation. Updates that could revive Ferrari's title ambitions or, at the very least, catapult them back into podium contention. But the optimism didn't last long. With a single line, team principal Fred Vasseur sent a chill through the Ferrari garage. "We definitely have a small step plan for Imola," he said. "That's it. Not a major leap forward. Not a game-changing upgrade. Just a small step." The kind of comment that sounds harmless at first, until you remember what's at stake. He went on to mention another update coming for Barcelona, but emphasized that the issue wasn't just about raw development. It was about finding the right balance for this car. And in that sentence, drivers and fans alike heard the one thing they were dreading. Ferrari still hasn't figured out what's wrong with the SF25. And even worse, it might be a long time before they do. According to insiders, both Hamilton and Leclerc were genuinely stunned by the lack of urgency. Privately, sources say both drivers had been assured that Imola would be a pivotal weekend. They had been told that the upgrades in the pipeline would close the gap to McLaren and Mercedes. Instead, they now face a brutal possibility, falling even further behind. And the data from Miami only reinforces that fear. Hamilton's average pace on medium tires? Nearly 1 full second slower than Oscar Piastri's McLaren. 1 second. In F1 terms, that's not a gap, it's a chasm. A canyon. An open wound. Telemetry revealed that both Ferraris lost significant time exiting slow corners and through traction zones. Rear-end instability, chronic oversteer, rapid tire degradation. It all combined to create a car that was not only difficult to drive, but impossible to trust. Even braking, once a Ferrari strength, now looks like a weakness. The SF25 lacked stability, precision, and control. And worst of all, much of the performance loss seems rooted in Ferrari's infamously narrow setup window. As Vasseur would later admit, the challenge isn't just technical, it's about bringing everything together. But in today's hyper-competitive Formula One landscape, where rivals like Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren are evolving every weekend, Vague optimism and platitudes about potential simply don't cut it. Not when your drivers are already hanging by a thread. Leclerc, trying to maintain a diplomatic tone, told reporters he held no bad feelings toward Hamilton despite the in-race radio drama. But even he couldn't mask his disappointment. "It's frustrating," he said. "The car has the potential, it's just stuck." His words weren't merely aimed at poor setup choices. They were a direct critique of the car's underlying design philosophy. A veiled but powerful admission. Maybe Ferrari got the concept wrong from the start. Hamilton, meanwhile, didn't hold back. Speaking post-race, he confessed to telling Vasseur to calm down during the debrief. "I could have said much worse," he admitted. "But I'm a fighter. I came here to win, and I won't apologize for that." That one comment speaks volumes. Hamilton isn't just disappointed, he's impatient. He didn't join Ferrari to play catch-up. He came for legacy, for glory, for history. And right now, all he sees is a project that's losing momentum while the rest of the grid races ahead. This isn't just a technical crisis. It's emotional, cultural, strategic. The disconnect between leadership and drivers is growing, and unless Ferrari finds not just performance but unity, belief, and urgency, 2025 might go down as another season of wasted potential and broken promises. His words, though respectful and carefully chosen, carried an unmistakable weight. Hamilton didn't need to raise his voice or point fingers to make his message clear. He didn't sign with Ferrari to cross the line in 7th or 8th. And yet, with Fred Vasseur continuing to embrace a cautious and restrained approach to development, it's becoming increasingly uncertain whether this team even has the flexibility or the will to deliver on the scale of ambition their drivers demand. Former Ferrari engineer Luigi Mazzola recently voiced his concern over Vasseur's leadership style, calling it too passive for the moment the team is currently facing. According to Mazzola, Vasseur seems more focused on exploring theoretical potential than urgently fixing what's already broken. "They're searching for something that might not even exist," he warned in a striking commentary that resonated deeply with many inside the F1 community. So where does that leave Ferrari? Trapped between sky-high expectations and a fundamentally flawed car. Led by a team principal preaching patience, while two world-class drivers grow increasingly restless for answers. Imola was supposed to be a turning point, the weekend where Ferrari fought back, where they proved that they still had fight left in them. Instead, it might go down as confirmation of the very fear that's haunted Maranello all season long, that the SF25 isn't just underperforming, it may be conceptually broken. Unless something changes soon, whether in development strategy, technical leadership, or cultural direction, Ferrari risks more than just another disappointing season. What's at stake now is something far more corrosive: trust. Trust between engineers and drivers. Trust between the pit wall and the cockpit. And perhaps most dangerously of all, the fragile trust between Ferrari and the millions of fans who still believe that the prancing horse belongs at the front of the grid. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is Vasseur right to stay the course with a slow, methodical approach, or is his conservatism dangerously out of sync with the urgency that Hamilton, Leclerc, and the Tifosi demand? Because what we're witnessing now isn't just a performance slump. It's an identity crisis, a philosophical fork in the road. On one side, you have the deliberate patience of a team boss hoping to build something stable, durable, and long-term. On the other, two elite drivers staring down the brutal reality that in Formula One, windows of opportunity are short, and nobody waits for you to catch up. Ferrari is currently standing on a razor's edge, where the stakes are rising faster than their rate of development. Every race weekend that passes without clear and measurable progress adds another layer of tension. Not just from inside the team garage, but from the relentless glare of the media, from the fans in the stands, and from the unforgiving championship standings. And this kind of pressure doesn't simply dissipate, it compounds. It festers until even the most minor slip-ups begin to feel like disasters. That's the hidden danger in delay. The longer you take to visibly evolve, the harder it becomes to convince the world, and your own personnel, that you're still on the right track. So the question isn't merely whether Ferrari can bring upgrades to Imola or Barcelona. The real question is, can they still lead from the front? Not just on the stopwatch, but in terms of belief, clarity of direction, and cultural identity. Because if the SF25 doesn't make a dramatic leap soon, Ferrari may not just lose the championship, they might lose the conviction of the very drivers they've banked their future on. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth F1 breakdowns, and stay tuned, because this quiet storm building inside Maranello might just erupt into chaos in the weeks to come.